Columbus, Georgia, this is your City Council. Mayor, Skip Henderson. City Manager, Isaiah Hughley. Pops Barnes, District 1. Glenn Davis, District 2. Bruce Huff, District 3. Evelyn Turner Pugh, Mayor Pro Tem and District 4. Charmaine Crabb, District 5. Gary Allen, District 6. Mimi Woodson, District 7. Walker Garrett, District 8. Judy Thomas, Post 9 at-large Counselor. John House, Post 10 at-large Counselor. Sandra Davis, Clerk of Council. And City Attorney Clifton Fay. Columbus, Georgia, this is your City Council.
Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to the May 21st council meeting and also budget hearing. We're going to have an invocation done by Councilor Gary Allen. The mayor will be here later today. And after he does that, we will do the pledge, and then I will turn things over to Councilor Judy Thomas for our budget. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Join me as we pray. God, we come to you now thanking you for all your blessings, your grace, and your mercy. We ask your continued blessings on our city, state, and nation. Bless those in attendance today and their families. Guide our deliberations today as we conduct the business of the city. Thank you, Lord, for all you're doing in our lives. I ask in my Savior's name. Amen.
Amen. If you would stand with me, so I'll lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So it's a clap for me. Councilor Thomas. I'm sorry. If we may have approval, motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Any questions? Any corrections? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Now, Councilor Thomas.
Got it. I go. Good morning. We are here today to take a look at the add delete list. For those of you that are not familiar with this, a couple of points as we go through this. There are some items on this list that our department heads have asked us to add. I don't see any on the list that our department heads have asked us to delete necessarily, but we do have a balancing of the budget process. One of the things I would remind council, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is that in order for an item to be passed on the add delete list, we do have to have 6 votes. It's the same as our regular voting mechanism. And what will happen is that we will vote on the add delete list. Those votes that are passed, those items that are passed to add or delete from the budget will be, the finance director in her office will take those back. And Madam Finance Director, is it next week that we will do the adoption of the budget, or the June 4th meeting?
The first reading of the budget ordinance will be June 4th.
Okay, so between today and June the 4th, they'll put all that together into the budget ordinance, and it will be at that time that we will take the official vote on, let's go. But the items that we vote on today will be incorporated into that budget ordinance. We do have one presentation this morning before we get started on the add delete list. Our tax commissioner is here. I'll turn it to, the other thing that I've asked Ms. Alexander to do at some point during, and probably after this, as we start actually looking at the list, is to tell us which ones on this list are budget neutral to the point that they would recommend that we adopt those particular ones. And let's go ahead and get some of those kinds of out of the, I don't mean to say out of the way that they're not important, but they should not take a lot of conversation. So I'm going to turn it to our finance director, who will get us started. Bruce, I don't have anything on this screen, on my screen. Are there questions before we get to the finance director? Would you do the Mayor Pro Tem?
The instructions you gave to Ms. Alexander, does that include those items on the add and delete list where that center possibly receives income, but it doesn't go directly to that center, it goes to the general fund balance?
Are there any items that's currently on the add delete list in which there may be some sort of revenue offset, although it may not be applicable directly to that department?
Right. And not necessarily an item, that particular item, but from that particular department.
Well, I mean, we do have some items on the list for departments that do produce revenue, so to speak. Our Parks and Recreations Department, they do produce revenue for the concessions and the gate admissions for the swimming pools, as well as the Clerk of Superior Court. There are some items that some monies that we receive from that office in the general fund. I cannot, though, tie anything specifically on the list to any particular revenue source. So that we do, but we do have departments on here that do produce revenues. They're just general fund revenues, though.
Okay. When we get to those departments, I have some questions.
As we're going through, would you sort of keep up and keep us on that track?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilor I'm sorry. Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilor Davis.
Madam Budget Chair, I've got a couple things I want to address, but one right now, I guess it's appropriate to do it now, but this is dealing with a non-departmental request. Do you want to have the? Okay, that's
that
what
piece
okay, good.
Done, and then we'll go to the list
I
itself.
yield. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Okay, so now turning it over to our tax commissioner, Mrs. Lula Huff.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm the last person on the agenda. We'll make it quick because I bring money to you. I don't ask for much. I have a high rate of return on your investment that you make into us. I'm coming to you asking you for $46,824. Of that amount, $22,000 is for operations and $24,824 is to address an equity in the pay grades of 4 of my top individuals, which are my deputy tax commissioners and my accounting administrator. I've provided to you as an attachment to the package that you have the CSU job description reviews and recommendations that they have made, which are in aligned with the requirements of city government. And so that explains the request. I have put in there what their recommendation was when compared to other city functions within city government. And so that information is available to you, and it's attached to you and highlighted. In the essence of time, unless you have questions pertaining to that, I won't spend a lot of time on that. On operational, contractual services were reduced by $16,000. We have no control over that amount whatsoever. It is mandated by the Department of Revenue as the result of the vendor, the contract vendor that the state utilizes for the mail-out of tag renewals. And we have to pay that amount of money directly to the state. They changed vendors, and that was the increase in the cost. On the postage, we have no control over the postage cost. It has gone up from 50 cents to 55 cents on our postage, and a bulk of our communication and collecting dollars is based on postage. In addition to that, that directly is related to our revenue. We generate $1 per mail-in for these motor vehicle renewals. So when we send out that 50 cents millage postage, we also collect $1 from the citizens. So when you were talking about revenues, I have 2 items that are actually budget neutral here in this particular case. But because the way the budget system is set up, it doesn't take under consideration that my postage is offset by the budget revenues that we bring in. For every postage that goes out, we receive $1 back, and we're only spending like 50 cents previously to that, but 55 cents currently when the postage goes up. For 2018, we brought in $58,000 as a result of collecting those $1 fees. So that doesn't go to offset my postage for motor vehicles, but it shows up as this amount. In addition to that, part of that postage has to be incurred when we do tax sales. But the unique thing about tax sales, again, which is not taken under consideration here, and it too is budget neutral, for every expenditure that we incur for a tax sale, we recoup that at the time of the tax sale. So our primary costs, which are postage, supplies, advertising, and when it happens, attorney fees, they are all recouped at the time we take a piece of property to tax sale. Whoever the high bidder is that wins that bid also must pay what is referred to as administration revenues. That comes back into us. We take those monies and turn them over to the general fund. It shows up in the general fund as tax revenues as part of those additional fees we collect, but it never offsets or shows up in my budget that that's where my expenditure is. And so that's what the other $6,000 is that we have there. The impact of having to reduce by this amount of money, naturally, when my top employees are working twice as hard. And the unique thing about these employees is that I have a very young staff at this management level who all are technology savvy. I would not have been able to implement or bring on board the Tyler IS World Accounting System and tax appraisal system had it not been for the technology that these individuals bring to the table. On Memorial Day of next week, we will go live on drives. We no longer utilize the IT department of the city for the functions of our motor vehicle department and our property tax department. That is all done now by PCs. The employees in my office must be technology savvy in order to operate our equipment. It is not like 20 or 30 years ago, quite different. The motivation and the ability to perform at this level starts with these individuals, so I need to motivate them to keep finding more and more ways to become more efficient and utilize automation in our office to assist our customers, and the only way to do that is to give exceptional training to the employees who are not tech savvy to make this work. On the operational side, if we're not able to do this, that $3,000 and for postage and $3,000 for supplies, which you already have anyway in my monies, it's going to cause me to reduce the number of levies that I'm going to do, which is the number of tax sales that I'm going to do in the upcoming year. I also want to say that if we reduce and don't do that postage that I have in there, and it's not offset, then for FY 2020, you need to reduce the postage revenue of $58,000 roughly that's in there, because you won't get that, because that would result in us not sending out motor vehicle tag renewals to any of the citizens. So you'd have to reduce your revenues by that amount. So that it really is a wash-wash. And the contractual costs would go away, so for the mandated tag renewal, so that expenditure would not exist, and nobody in city government, including yourselves, would not get a motor vehicle tag renewal notice. So you would increase the number of people that would be coming before you and asking about that before council. On the delinquent tax sale, in FY19, we only did 3 tax sales, and this is very important to you, I believe, because it affects your city's reserve, and it can help you out. In FY 2019, we did 3 tax sales, which was about $1.36 million. We have a tax sales scheduled for the first Tuesday of June, which is in just a couple of weeks. And we will be bringing in additional cash to you at that point in time. Well, in 2018 and 2019, because of the expertise of my employees, I did not ask for additional employees. I cross-trained within the city government and in my office, and therefore we concentrated our efforts on bringing on board Tyler's new property tax and evaluation system, and then we turned around and put our efforts on drives. We now have the property tax system in place, and Memorial Day we will have drives in place. And it was our intent in the presentation of our budget that we would now concentrate our efforts on doing more tax sales. That equates for 2020 in our budget right now, 5 tax sales instead of the 3 that we had in 2019. We're bringing in $4 million this year, okay? Whereas before last year, you had 1.36. I'm talking about bringing in $4 million in cash for 2020. That's pretty impressive, okay? I would think so. Anyway, for a small expenditure of $46,824, and you could quickly do the math on that one. But if we don't get those 2 tax sales, you are going to lose 1.2. You're going to get a delay in cash of $2.8 million, and we'll just push it out for next year. But we're willing to do whatever our city government wills for us to do, because we are a team player of you. So we want to give you a positive effect on your cash flow, which I understand you are in need of, and it could perhaps help you. On the next sheet that you have there, and I'll make it very brief, just to give you an indicator of the impact that we have. We are the sole department that brings you revenue to this magnitude and extent. All of the other requests that you will be doing on add and deletes come into effect by us bringing you money. If we don't bring you that money, then it's sort of a mute question as to how much you add and delete. In gross collections, property tax, motor vehicle, in 2018, we provided 31%, 31.2% of your operating funds, which was $85,241. I don't think any other department can compare with that. The charges for fees in addition to that was 11% of your 40.8 million that comes in from other fees and services. Our portion of that equates to 4.5 million, which is not part of property taxes. If I subtract from that the motor vehicles and property tax fees, interest and late payments, that's 1.432. So those kinds of additional revenues that I bring in that support the operations of what we physically do, which our function is to provide money to you, we collect taxes. Commissions that we brought in from the school district at 2.5%, 2.8 million. Bid commissions, 2.5%, $14,000. And I understand that none of this money belongs to me at all, but in the title ad valorem tax and the law itself and under the insurance lap fees, the law does state that these additional fees go to defray the cost of the additional expenses incurred in the tax commissioner's office and that they should be placed in the general fund for that purpose. From 2013 at $39,000 to today, we have been bringing into you over $100,000 a year, okay, for title ad valorem taxes, and I have never asked for one penny of that money to be given back to my department for its operation and the additional expenditures that we have incurred by taking on the passing of a new law to administrate the title and ad valorem tax fee. This year, in 2018, that amount that we brought in was $141,800. I'm only asking for $46,824. The lapse fee was the same thing. In 2018, it was $68,610. I'm only asking for $46,824. Advertising and administration fee for delinquent taxes. I've already explained to you that is budget neutral. I recover those costs automatically every time I have a tax sale. You get all of your money back. I brought that back into you for 2019. 2018, so I will do the same thing for the sales in 2019. And for 2020, those numbers will be even higher because if you approve the budget, we will have more tax sales. In addition to these $3.1 million that I'm giving you in addition to the tax collection just based on the fees that we collect, I'm giving you homestead audits. Homestead audits are very unique in character because for every audit we can bring in that we go out and do and try to remove from the books individuals who no longer qualify for homestead exemptions, we're able to put more money back on your books for you. This is additional revenues for you to spend because that's my purpose. We look for money to give you to spend as you choose. So for FY17, we did 598 audits. We brought in $500,000, okay? $500,000 just from 598 audits. So if I can put my people on the boards to use the internet to check the newspapers, you got additional monies coming in. In FY18, we do the same thing. We bumped it up. We did 642 audits, despite the fact that we were handling a new tax system and a motor vehicle registration system that was going to come on board with training. We brought in another $500,000. So the more I can impact with technology, I can get advanced. I can keep my folks motivated to do these things. I can provide you additional funds to do whatever you need to do. I'm asking for $46,824. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for the tax commissioner? Are you moving both the personnel items and the operational items? Yes, ma'am. All right. Ms. Alexander, if you'll put those on the list. Anything else for the tax commissioner? Ms. Huff, before you leave the platform, would you just very quickly remind our audience about the closure of the tax office in the coming days?
Yes, I appreciate
the tag office, I'm sorry.
The tag office, and I appreciate that very much because that's been critical, and I mentioned it briefly in my presentation referring to drives. We've done advertisement for it, and it is going live. Drives is the software system that the Motor Vehicle Department utilizes in the state of Georgia for all 159 counties. On Memorial Day, they will flip the switch that will put this new system into effect. We're praying on it, and God's willing, it's going to work just fine. But when you have 159 counties, and you have big counties like DeKalb, Fulton, Cobb, Gwinnett, hitting the system all at one time on Memorial Day, what happens when the doors open, which you know we're closed, it's a holiday on that day. When we open on that Tuesday, we're very much concerned that with all those counties hitting at one time, there is no parallel testing. It goes live. So what we have planned to do to try to accommodate this, the state is closing the motor vehicle side of its operations. We can't do anything. We won't be able to do anything at all on Friday.
Of this week.
That's correct, thank you. Friday of this week, motor vehicle will be shut down. We won't be able to answer questions for you unless it's some very, very specific question. If it's a general question, we'll have a couple of people there that, will answer general questions for you, but we won't be able to access any systems whatsoever. Because it shuts down on midnight on Thursday, we are shutting down our motor vehicle operations at the end of the day on Wednesday. And the reason for that is that we have to extract from that system all of our financial data and reconcile it and be sure that everything is accurate, correct, we balance out to a zero. Because if we wait until Thursday and try to do it on Friday, it's too late. And when we bring it back up, when the system comes up next week, we won't be able to do that reconciliation of what was and what is there now. So for that reason, yes, we will be shut down on Thursday and Friday, motor vehicle side only. The property tax side will be operational.
Okay. So if you need to get your tag renewed, you may want to go this afternoon.
Yes, we will be there. We will be there for you. Thank you so
Okay.
very much.
We have Councilor House.
Tuesday, does it reopen?
Noontime.
Noon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I appreciate that question. Yes, we open at noontime on Tuesday, and the basis for that is because, like I said, with all of those large counties hitting that system all at one time, we don't know what the impact is going to be. So my staff, will be in here on Memorial Day. We're going to be in here testing the system, okay? We're doing everything to be proactive that system is going to work. So my chief folks are going to be in here. I'll be in here. We will be testing that system on Memorial Day and to ensure that we're going to be okay, to minimize any effect that we might possibly see on Tuesday. So we will open it. And we will stay late, too, on Tuesday to accommodate people.
Anything else for the tax commissioner? Thank you, Ms. Huff.
Thank you so much for the
Just-
opportunity to serve.
For
Yes.
matter of the record, so Councilor Allen is adding to the add-delete list an increase in operational expenses of $22,000 for contractual services, postage, and office supplies. And as far as the personnel increases, these are reclassifications, reclassifying a grade 20 C to 22A. That is for the accounting operations administrator. And then reclassifying 3 deputy tax commissioners from a grade 18A to a grade 20A. The total cost of the reclassifications is $24,824. And also, just as a matter of the record, as of the end of March, our property tax revenues are up about 2%, and that amounts to about $788,000 in additional revenue. So I don't.
Well, the tax commissioner, and we don't dispute anything that she said. I think it's an encouraging forecast. It's an exciting forecast, especially when it comes to delinquent tax sales. But this is our first time seeing the report, and so we don't question or dispute our numbers, but we want you to know that we've not seen the report. And as the finance director said, we see the revenue up around close to $800,000 at this time, for your information.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Anything else for the tax commissioner? You're going to be here all day Monday? Is that what you said?
Yes.
You guys all day Monday? Okay.
Yeah. As long as it takes to test that system.
Thank you for your efforts and for what you do for collecting all of this money. I told the tax commissioner the other day, I lived in Orange County, California at one point in my life, and Orange County went bankrupt. And the first thing they did was they laid off 45 tax collectors. I said, you know, if you're looking for money, you probably ought not lay off the people who collect your money. So she's not going in that direction at all, but thank you so much. Councilor Davis, do you want to go at this point?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. There's a couple things I wanted to address here. I think that I've already had some dialogue and some conversation on it, but this has been somewhat an interesting year because there's been a lot of talk around salary savings within departments. I think everybody knows if you go back to the prior year, salary savings was just in a few departments. A lot of departments were in budget or over budget. So it's kind of been interesting, and it's been really, along with that conversation, it's brought up some thoughts of some areas that we may need to take a close look at. And when I say take a close look at, it's from the standpoint of just best management practices, providing more of a, I guess, of a guideline for finance and for the executive management to kind of work within the structure of the government. But, you know, we talked a lot about salary savings in the budget. It's in the fund balance, okay? And that's where it is. We've had little, as far as new revenue, I guess you can say little increase in sales tax. I think there's been, you know, on the property tax side, I'm not really sure. We just had the tax commissioner here. I mean, property comes on, property comes off the tax rolls, and then with some of these decisions, whether these allocation districts or whatever, you know, there's money floating around out there. It's not in the general fund, it's not in fund balance. I just don't know how that's adding up. So primarily, we've been focused a lot on salary savings. I think in that understanding, it's come to my attention, and I think there's been some agreement across the board to come up with some terms, maybe a better word is a control measure and all, and dealing with how we're using salary savings, whether it's, you know, you've heard several terms that we've used, whether it's reallocation or reclassifications or how we're using that money. I think there needs to be some better structure there. I've talked to city manager, I think I've talked with the finance department, and I think everybody's in agreement. And at some point, before we finalize the budget, I think that we'll have a section dealing with those, I'm just going to use the word terms. I've talked to city manager about it. I think he's in full agreement with it.
Mr. City Manager.
Madam Chair, Councilor Davis did speak with me, and what I'd like to do, talk to the mayor, and maybe at the next council meeting, the 28th, Mayor, we could provide a salary savings best practices recommendation that would be included in the budget ordinance, kind of like we did when we did, what is it, 1839? When we require department heads to come back to council if they're going to go over their budget,
Right.
exceed their budget.
13-39.
Yeah, well, whatever that number is. But Mayor, I was thinking we could talk about how that we might bring something. Yeah.
Yeah,
And if we bring it to the 28th meeting, you could discuss it and tweak it, do whatever you want with it, and then it could be in the budget ordinance when it comes back to you.
And the fact of that is somewhat, if you know, let's just say hypothetically this coming year, all the positions are filled. That money just goes away. So you got to be real careful how you're allocating or how you're using that money. It may not be there, and then we've made decisions that we're not really sure of. And on the flip side, you got to be careful. Look, I think everybody knows, I'm not like a major fan of budget neutral and keeping it within the department. I think it should all, if you've done a good job in managing your department and there's extra money, it should go into, everything should go into the general pot. But, you know, the past administrations somewhat have allowed us to do or to utilize the extra funds in the departments, within the departments. Now, you know, you got to look at that. If you've got some departments that have a lot of salary savings, you know, the question comes up, should they be able to use their own salary savings? It's in their department. Or are you going to turn around and allocate it to another department just because they stayed within budget or they were over budget? That's somewhat, you know, there's an aspect of penalization there, that somebody that stays within budget or somebody that's over budget, and you don't, you're not able to utilize those funds. We've had last year, I believe we had two major departments. That was majority of the salary savings. So the argument is, should they be allowed to keep their own money versus it going into the general pot and then being used? And right now, I can't tell you unless you can tell me which direction that money's flowing, you know, or is it being given to another department because they don't have that kind of money? So I'm talking in general. That's the reasoning behind coming up with more of a structure on the salary savings side. So that's one. The other thing that I wanted to mention, Madam Budget Chair.
So before you leave that,
Yeah,
Mr.
right.
City Manager, as I understand, you're going to bring us back, bring council back something at a later meeting along with what Councilor Davis is saying.
Yeah, I'm going to get
Okay.
with the mayor, and we were just talking, and Mayor, I think we could bring at least a discussion back at the next meeting, the 28th.
Great. Okay.
And we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you.
And
Mr. Davis?
When, if terms are structured or whatever and put together, I think it would probably be, it would come in the form of a budgetary requirement. So it would be a step there, and we will be approving that here soon. The second thing is, I know we've got some non-departmental matters on the list for financing, one dealing with the film funding, the other one dealing with Mercer. I think Mercer's pretty much set, that we've got an agreement there. We just, we're approving the funding here, but we, you know, again, I go back to the terms. I think at some point, if not already, we don't have it now, dealing with these approvals, the terms of how this funding is going to work, or the understanding. The film fund, I'm in total agreement with it, but I think all of us have had meetings and we've talked to various people who are involved, and I think we all have an understanding. I think I'm confident in saying that we're all on the same page. We just don't have those terms or the understanding in front of us. I'd like to have that at some point before we start making the allocations. I just think it's prudent to have that in place, so it's an understanding how that money will be utilized, or how it flows through, well, it's taxpayer money, but how it flows to these entities. So again, I say we all have an understanding of that. We just don't have that document in front of us right now, and I think it's always prudent that you have that before you start allocating money. We're approving it now, so I think we're all in agreement, and I don't have a problem with that, but I'd like to see that, and I believe the staff is, I've had some conversations. I think they're working on that, and that it'll come to us soon, at a later date.
Is that it, Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir.
thank you.
We'll draft a document on both Mercer and film funding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilor Davis. Okay, I think we are ready to move into the add delete list. This is the fun part of the day. And so, Ms. Finance Director, if you will start us off.
Yes, ma'am. So what you have before you is the add delete list before today's edition. The general fund balance, the fund days balance began at 69.12 days. With the addition to the list by Councilor Allen for the tax commissioner, that revised balance is 65.76 days in the general fund. On the report that you have before you, it shows 65.85. So the revised starting balance with everything that's on the list is 65.76 days.
Before you go further, Ms. Alexander, I know we have a couple of counselors who are new to the budget process. Would you just sort of go through the process that we do? For example, if we add $20,000 to something, what does that do? How do we calculate that? Where does that come from? Some of those kinds of things. Would you do that for us?
Yes, ma'am. So every item that's listed on here is essentially impact and reserves, except for the items that are in fact budget neutral. And so what we do is we determine based on the dollar value of the item that's on the list, how does that impact the fund balance reserve days. So you may see to the far right of the list there, GF BAL days, or that stands for General Fund Balance Days. So you can see the impact there to the reserve balance based on what's listed there. As an example, with item number 1, there's a deletion of a temporary position in the marshal's office, but that's actually adding back 0.10 days. All of the other items where it's a deduction or a reduction of the fund balance days would show up as a negative.
So, for example, the next item on there that lists a deduction is, happens to be in the coroner's office, and it's a deduction of 0.08 days of the fund balance. So
Yes.
that's the running tally that we're keeping, and that's how we ultimately come up with the 65.76 days.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So just starting out with, as Madam Budget Chair mentioned, the items that are in fact budget neutral. I'm going to jump around on the list here. Starting out on the first page in the general fund with item number 2. This is actually a staff addition for the sheriff's office. It was just an item that was inadvertently missed from being placed in the recommended budget, but it is in fact budget neutral. It is the reclassification of an ID technician, public safety grade 16 to sergeant PS 18, using salary savings through attrition from a position number 2002. That is in fact budget neutral. That's why there is no impact to the general fund balance days.
Okay. What is council's pleasure? Do you want to deal with these as we go through them, or do you want to wait until the end to deal? Okay.
So just go.
Okay. So item number 2 is before you. We have a motion and a second to move approval of item number 2. Is there any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? She did. She said.
So the next budget neutral item that's listed here is item number 11. It was added on the add delete list by Councilor Woodson. It is also, again, for the sheriff's office, and it is a 2.5% pay increase, which is the equivalent of a one-step increase on the pay scale for all sergeant, grade 18s, all captains, grade 20s, and all lieutenants, grade 22 positions. And this will be budget neutral by reallocating the salaries from 2 correctional officer positions. The sheriff cannot fill those correctional officers' positions in the future unless expressly approved by this council.
So that what that means is that if we approve this at this point, the money that is currently in the budget for these 2 correctional officers will go to this reclass, and it will stay there. Those positions cannot be filled forevermore unless she comes back to council to get them filled and funded.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay? What is your pleasure? I have a motion to approve. We have a question. Councilor Crabb, I'm sorry.
So when we have this cannot fill the position in the future unless expressly approved by council, does that actually reduce the positions? Like, you know, when they come before us, they say we are 50 officers down, 25 officers down. So would that actually say it was 50? So now would they be stating that they are 48 officers down?
What this generally means, and correct me if I'm wrong, for just as an example, and the numbers are probably not right. Suppose they have 100 correctional officers. This means from now until they come back to get further authorization from council, they will only have 98 positions. They won't have the 100 positions. They'll only have 98. And so I'm assuming that, again, too, you're right. If they say they have 50 vacancies, this means they only have 48 vacancies because they don't have those 2 positions.
Correct. Okay.
Is that a fair explanation?
That is correct. That's
Okay.
correct. That's
Okay.
what they should say.
That's what we want them to say.
Sometimes we speak in finance departmentese, so we want to make sure that we're there. Are there other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this item on the add list. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, Ms. Alexander?
So the next budget neutral item is item number 16. It was placed on the add delete list by Councilor Davis for the police department. This is adding an additional $2,200 to police pay reform year 5. This brings that year 5 amount in line with years 7 through 30. And this will be accomplished by reallocating the salaries from 1 police officer position. And again, this position cannot be filled in the future unless expressly approved by council. And just so you know, when we do these types of, it can't be filled until approved by council, that is actually adopted in the budget ordinance. So that tally as far as how many police is using, how many the sheriff is using to do these reclassifications is in the budget ordinance and will continuously be there unless council does something different.
And so what this means, again, Councilor Crabb, I believe the police department has 488 sworn officer positions authorized. This will make it 487 positions authorized.
But we're already using 20 for other pay reform, so this would be.
This particular
This
one, though,
particular one
as
is
we
just
go
one
in,
less.
as we go down the line.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Other motion and second to approve. Any other discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
I would like to request that at some point in time, it doesn't have to be before the budget is approved. If the chief would come and explain to the John Q. public what we're doing about trying to fill those positions.
Okay. I don't know if you heard that, Chief, but she's asking that at some point, not today, but at some point, if you would make a presentation, perhaps in a work session, on how you are trying to fill those empty positions. So I think you and the city manager can get together with a schedule. Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
Hit that.
Did we
Was
vote
pro
on
tem.
that? Okay. All those in favor of item 16, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Moving to page number 2, this is the next budget neutral item. It's item number 23, and it is for the Marshal's Office. It was placed on the add delete list by Councilor Huff, and it is increasing the uniforms expense by reducing $5,000 from overtime and $12,000 from bailiffs. This is in fact budget neutral. He is just reallocating money from his personnel to his operating budget.
And in order for him to do that, he has to have the permission of council in the budget to do that.
Yes, correct.
Okay? Motion to approve and seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Moving to the last page, as far as items that are actually budget neutral.
Ms. Alexander, we did have a question. Councilor Crabb was asking about item 14
14? Did I miss one?
from the DA's office.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed it. Yes, moving back to item number 14. I didn't have that highlighted on my sheet here. It is a reclassification for the district attorney's office. It was placed on the add delete list by Councilor Crabb, and it is actually a reduction to the budget. The reclassification is to reclassify an administrative assistant grade 12P to administrative operations manager grade 18C. It is a reduction of $1,312.
Do we have a motion and a second? Any discussion? Councilor Davis? Yes. Item number 14.
Yes, it is in fact budget neutral. It actually results in a savings of $1,312.
Okay, I'm good on that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Alexander.
Yes, ma'am. So if you could turn for me to the last page on the current printout that you have for the other funds. The budget neutral items, starting with item number 2, was added to the list by Councilor Pugh. For the Civic Center, they are deleting and actually items 2, 3, and 4 are in tandem. So those items all impact each other in order to keep this, in fact, budget neutral. But item number 2 is to delete a grade 9 arena tech position at the cost of $37,954. And then to item number 3 is to reclassify, using those dollars, some of those dollars, to reclassify the event services manager from a grade 17 to a grade 20 at a cost of $6,784. And then the remaining funds from that deletion will be used to increase the temporary employee labor pool for the Civic Center at a cost of $31,170.
Do you want to take these individually or as a group? Okay, is there a motion? Second? Any further discussion? We are voting on items 2, 3, and 4 from other funds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item, item number 5, is also in the, for the Civic Center. Council recently approved moving forward with the agreement for a hockey team at the Civic Center. This is just establishing a revenue and an expense budget for hockey at the Civic Center. It is in fact budget neutral. The budgeted amount for hockey to be added to the Civic Center's budget is $324,650.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 5. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And the last budget neutral item is item number 7. This is a staff addition for the engineering department. It's a position within the paving fund. It is a title change only, reclassifying a senior engineering technician, grade 16, to a GIS technology supervisor, grade 16. There is no impact to the budget for this change.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, so moving back to the first page.
Okay.
So item number 1 on the add delete list is a staff addition. It's for the marshal's office, is to delete a temporary deputy marshal, grade 14 position that was placed in the budget for Davenport. The total impact to the general fund is 0.10 days at an amount of $53,050.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 1. This is to delete a temporary position, right?
That's correct. Funding was placed in the budget. Now we're taking it back out.
Okay. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the list is item number 3. This was placed on the list by Councilor Pugh for the coroner's office. And actually, items number 3 and 4 are in conjunction with each other. And item number 5 is independent. But item number 3 is for the coroner's office, is to add 1 full-time deputy coroner, grade 16 position with the clothing allowance. And that cost is $53,718. This is partially offset by a reduction in part-time wages for the coroner's office of $12,918. So it has an impact to the general fund reserve days of 0.08.
And Madam Finance Director, there also is item 2 on the OLOS funds.
Yes, item 2 on the OLOS funds is actually in conjunction with this addition, because the deputy coroners do receive an OLOS supplement, and that amount is $3,828. And if I could go back to item number 1 on the OLOS list, that was in reference to the OLOS supplement for that temporary position in the marshal's office. Can we address that while we're here?
Okay, let's come back to that.
Okay.
Okay? Let's get the coroner positions dealt with first. Councilor Davis.
Thank you. You want to take one at a time, or you want to look at them all three?
Well,
Actually,
if item number 3 is not approved, we don't need item 4 or the OLOS.
okay.
So,
we'll
isn't that correct, Ms. Alexander?
That is correct.
If we don't fund the position, we don't need a car or a
The supplement. That's correct.
Okay.
right. Well, what I'd like to do is make a recommendation here to, you can call it recommendation or amendment to this request. And I go back to what I was talking about earlier about the fund balance. Just understanding it's always been, what we're working with today is that we've used this fund balance. We're doing reallocations. We're doing, we've done emergency expenditures in the past. We're doing reclassifications. You're doing bonuses. You're doing, it's budget neutral or capital or non-reoccurring expenses. Some of this stuff is I put it under restructuring, such as recorder's court, and I think the public defender and all is you could put it under restructuring, and even the clerk of council, this council is dealing with some structuring in those areas. And then, of course, you got the restricted funds. But what I see, what's been talked about, and the finance director has addressed is pertaining to new allocation of, well, it's not allocation, it's the utilization of an expenditure, or utilization of revenue. So we're really increasing the budget and not only increasing the budget, but we're adding on new personnel to the government. at an expense. I question that, and I have a concern because I'm still not comfortable where we're at with our revenue. The horizon, you got to think about the horizon. All the economists are out there talking about recessions, et cetera. So, you know, and you cannot discount the fact that we don't have a BRAC anymore. Okay, we don't have a BRAC anymore. So there's going to be some things that may happen on the horizon that we really need to come to grips with. You know, I'm not forecasting anything. I'm not a wizard or anything like that to say what's going to happen, but I do know that these things are being talked about, and we got to understand it. The possibility we're putting ourselves in a position, we take on new people, we're going to have to let them go at some time. Hopefully, that won't happen. Maybe another year under our belt, we'll have a better idea of the revenue coming in and what we're dealing with, maybe on a consistent basis. But my recommendation here is that, look, I'm not by any means not, how can I say, look, I have to trust at word all the departments when they come in here, and they all come and they justify their request. I think under this circumstance, we've got two on here, that one is in the coroner's office, one is in the DA's office. I think we can address those issues by utilizing, my recommendation would be to, before we take on a new position, I would like to have a little more information, a little more understanding that you can call it justification, you can call it just more information solidifying or supporting the need that we need to do that. I don't think we have it today. The only thing I can do is ask the finance director or the city manager why it wasn't approved, but it's been requested. I still have a lot of questions. I think it would be appropriate that we make a decision to help these departments and move forward with some personnel on the part-time or the temporary positions. And that would be my recommendation, is to move forward on to approve the temporary positions. That will be looked at. Our auditor will come back, take a look at the information, and if it's deemed necessary during midterm or mid-year, then we can come back and fill that position on a permanent basis. But I think we owe it to all the departments and what we're dealing with and how we're going about this. Based on the conversation that we've had at the table with all the department heads, I just think that we need to be able to justify that we're taking these things on and that there is a true need out there. And the only way to do that is to have the information from our auditor, that's who does the work for us, the independent counsel, to help us understand that before we take it on. I'm not saying that I'm not in favor of taking on at this point in time. I'm willing to approve the part-time help that's needed to help in those areas if they do need help. But then if it's deemed necessary to come back and then fill those on a full-time basis. I think that's the appropriate way as far as being prudent or from a managing of the finances, and that would be my recommendation today to council.
Same recommendation, are you making a motion for that?
If I need to make a motion, I would make a motion that the motion would be that we approve the part-time, or I guess it would be temporary at that point, but it would be part-time to provide the help.
No. There's a real difference between part-time and temporary, right?
There is.
Yeah. So you're talking about a temporary position.
But if I might add, I guess I kind of get where Councilor Davis is
Before you
going.
do that, we've got a number of people in queue, including the mayor. So I do want to I want Councilor Davis to finish his motion to tell us what he's proposing, and then we're going to move to the mayor. So, Councilor Davis.
Well, I will yield to further conversation on the part-time temporary. I would like to hear our finance department and the administration address that, how how they view it. I guess my motion is that we're going to provide, the request has been made for some assistance in need in those departments, okay? I'm willing to give that today, but I'm asking for more information from our auditor to solidify, in the case of the coroner, I guess it would be the mortality rate. I want to look at that real close. I want to have those numbers in front of me. Not saying that I would not approve a full-time position, but I think it'd be appropriate to have that information, and then either at midterm or point deemed that we can approve it on a full-time basis. And that would be consistent with the same with the district attorney's request. And that was the third item on my list.
So your motion is
Budget Chair.
that the item number 3, instead of a full-time deputy coroner, that we approve a temporary full-time deputy coroner.
We're adding the help needed.
Wait. Is that your motion? That we add a temporary full-time coroner, deputy coroner?
I would like to leave that temporary, I would like to come back to my motion on the part-time temporary, because there is a difference, but I want to hear
Okay,
from the finance department.
let's go to the finance director.
Right, so whether you add a position full-time permanently to the coroner's office or do it a full-time position temporarily, the cost would be the same. But the item number, what I wanted to point out was item number 5. It was an alternative put on the add delete list by Councilor Garrett. And in the event that the coroner's office did not get approved for a new full-time deputy coroner, that his wages would be increased for a permanent part-time deputy coroner position at 29 hours a week. So that is the alternative. Item number 5 is an alternative to items number 3 and 4 if you do not move forward with the full-time coroner position. So I don't know if that's where you were going with, but that is already on the list.
So that would be wages for the current employee, an increase in wages there, and a part-time, an addition of a part-time. Is that what you're saying?
It would be an additional amount of wages added to the coroner's budget to fully fund a part-time coroner. Right now, he has only $18,000 in wages, and that amount is shared between the part-time coroner and the part-time drivers that he has. So he cannot fully utilize the part-time coroner because he has to share that bucket of money with the drivers. So he wants to have in place enough funding for a part-time coroner so that they could work up to 29 hours a week. Item number 5 is giving the funding for that part-time coroner to work up to 29 hours a week.
Right. I'm okay with providing that additional funding to do that.
Okay.
Okay, we've got Mayor Pro Tem.
The mayor.
I'm sorry, you'll do the mayor.
Well, all I was going to say is, I appreciate, it's on. I appreciate where Councilor Davis is coming from. I think he's put voice to a concern that a lot of us have, and that is that, listen, when we were sitting there listening to all the department heads, they make a compelling case for additional people. They do. They need them. The challenge is, with the revenues projected by the finance department, and we try to get them as close to what we think it's actually going to be as possible. But the challenge is, it just wasn't the revenue to be able to add these people at this time. And in sticking as mayor with kind of the way I looked at things as a counselor, it's just hard for me to suggest paying wages out of fund balance, because it goes back to that adage of paying your mortgage out of your savings account. You're not going to be able to do it for very long. Now, we've heard that there's an anticipated uptick ever so slightly in perhaps in the tax receipts. We did see an increase in sales tax. We saw some increase in some licensing fees. But we don't know yet that those are going to be sustainable and they're going to reappear year after year. Right now, they're kind of a blip. I just wanted to kind of give credence to what Councilor Davis was saying. I understand what y'all are dealing with. We went through it when we were trying to find a way to provide the individuals that were requested by these department heads. They do need them, but in our opinion, it just wasn't a wise thing to do to pay them out of fund balance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have told a number of people as we've been talking about this budget that none of our department heads that came to us brought us frivolous requests. They all brought us requests that are necessary and needed, and if money were no object, we would go there. So let's go to Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Mayor, I understand what you're saying, but however, you know, the coroner has no control over the number of bodies he has to pick up. And all you have to do is turn on TV first thing in the morning, and there's another shooting, stabbing, another body to be picked up. And I think the coroner has been very fruitful in allocating funds in his office and saving us money on last year when they started doing the cremations, and found a lot of savings. So, while I know we have to be careful about getting out of fund balance, but when services have to be provided, they have to be provided. And you can only work your present employees so many hours overtime. They're human. They're still breathing. So that's not 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Excuse me, Councilor Crabb.
I do have a couple questions. So if we did approve the part-time, does he still need the car? And does he, number 4?
I think the coroner mentioned that for item number 4 is concurrent with item number 3. But if you approve the part-time wages, the coroner did mention in his presentation that the part-time coroner would utilize mileage. So she would submit for a mileage reimbursement. And she would drive her own vehicle.
Okay, I think I remember the coroner saying last year and this year that he's driving a pretty old car. It's all just kind of like a fire hose coming at me, and so I'm just wanting to get some clarification about, I know that you're saying that the car was going with a full-time position, but would the car still be needed with a part-time position?
We would either
No.
need,
Okay.
as I understand what Ms. Alexander said, you'll either need a car or you'll need mileage.
Okay.
And neither one of those currently in the budget for this additional time for the part-time.
Okay, so is mileage-
Is that right?
So
That's
is
correct.
mileage?
For the part-time, that would be
For
correct.
the part-time, you either have to provide them with a car or you have to pay them mileage, neither one of which are in the current budget proposal. Is that correct?
That's correct, but if you choose to approve a car and it be utilized by the part-time person, that's obviously council's discretion if you want to fund a vehicle for, an additional vehicle for the coroner's office.
If
So
we,
my point is, it's going to cost us more money either way. Either we give them a car or we give them mileage.
That's correct.
It's going to cost us more money than is currently in the budget.
so the mileage is not really added into this part-time?
That's correct. That's correct. My assumption would be that the coroner would cover that within his existing operating budget,
Okay.
because that wasn't part of his request.
Okay, the other thing that I wanted to just kind of bring up that I remember being said when the auditor came, he strongly advised us to build up our reserves for a rainy day. And I believe he said that we should be setting a goal to get into the 70-day So I just wanted to remind us all of that.
Okay, at this point, we do not have a motion on the table. We don't have a second to the motion. Councilor Davis made a motion. I'm sorry, Councilor Davis, you're in line. Would you?
Right. Thank you, ma'am. And I'm okay with the car. I think I don't have a problem with that. I'd like to ask that to be on the lease plan if we do that. I don't have a problem with updating this vehicle there, but I do think, look, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I understand what you're saying, but, the way I view the mortality rate in Columbus, whether homicides or not, some of this stuff can be looked at as anomaly. I know there's an average. We've had an average over the years. I mean, that can be determined. We've had a year or two that's been a little bit different. I don't know if that's going to change next year or not. I don't know if it's going to change into this year. We don't know. I don't expect those kind of things to just continue to increase off the charts. I do question the mortality rate. I look at our populace being the same. Populace is not increasing in Columbus, Georgia, and they say people are living longer. So, I mean, I would like to have a little more information of justifying a need, because I just went through a list of how we've been working today, and the finance director has led us in understanding how these funds are being utilized. This is a reoccurring expense. That's why I'm asking for justification. That's the best word. I believe everybody involved. I just think it's as the responsibility that I've been given, that if I see that and I can justify it, I can sign off on a full-time position. That's increasing the size of our government. That's a reoccurring expenditure. I'm okay with that. I can't say that at this table today. So that's why I'm making my recommendation. I will approve the vehicle. I'll give my vote on that. I would guess that the part-time, if it's needed part-time, the only caveat there, if it comes back and the information says that we don't need to increase, then you fill that position of part-time. I'm willing to meet halfway and make that a part-time position to get some help over there and continue to look at this matter and work with the coroner on it. I can agree to that. That way it wouldn't be, the only thing between part-time and temporary, part-time would be a higher position, less hours. Temporary would be when we get the information, we look at it, if it's justifiable, it becomes a full-time position.
Okay, we are looking at items.
I'll make it a part-time. I would like to give the finance department or executive administration some leadway in this, but I don't think I can do that with this recommendation.
Okay, we have, what we're looking at before us is items 3, 4, and 5. So, Councilor Davis, your motion is to approve item 5, the part-time. Is that your motion? Or
My motion would be approve item 5, part-time, unless somebody can convince me otherwise, and based upon the information that we'll receive to justify a full-time position, and at that point, if it's deemed necessary, I'll make the motion to go ahead and make it a full-time position.
Okay, so the motion at this point is item 5, the part-time, the additional wages for the part-time. You have a second?
You're right, madam. I'm adding the perspective of conditions I see to it, because I want that to be clear for the record. But it would be, yes, today it would be adding one part-time deputy coroner.
Okay. So the motion before you is to add item number 5, the additional wages to fund one part-time deputy coroner at 29 hours a week. Any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
I want to ask the coroner, the money that we were going to use to offset the wages above, do we still have that money available to use on this part-time position?
That would be, no ma'am. The amount that's listed here has already taken into consideration what he currently has budgeted for wages, which is the $18,000. So this will be in addition to the current amount that's budgeted in order to fund the driver pool that he currently has and to also fund a coroner, a part-time coroner at 29 hours a week.
Okay.
Counselor House?
Shouldn't we vote on 3 first?
We could,
We don't have a motion on 3,
Right.
okay? We have a motion on 5.
Okay.
Talking about all three of them at one time.
That's what we've done.
We've been discussing all 3 of them, but the motion before the council is item number 5.
Okay.
And if you vote that up, then item number 3 goes away. If you vote it down, then you can revisit item number 3. Okay? Oh, at some point, we don't have number 4, however, is not part of the motion. See, this is what you get when you get a parliamentarian as your chair.
Can I ask one more?
Sure.
I just want some clarification.
press the thing.
So, I'm sorry.
On the OLOST, number 2, that's for full-time only, so
Yes.
it would not apply to the part-time?
That's correct.
Part-time positions do not get the supplement.
That's correct.
I see, okay, I just wanted that clarified.
Counselor Allen?
Thank you, Chair. Angelica, I'd like to get clarification on the funding of the full-time position. There seems to be bringing some monies together from a part-time position to fund the full-time position. Is that right?
That's correct.
So if we fund the part-time position and we delay the full-time till we get more information, say mid-year, then at that time, we'll either have to do away with the part-time position in order to fund the full-time position, or it would cost us more just to add the full-time position at that time.
Right, at that time, you could reclassify the part-time position to a full-time position. At such time, there would be an additional cost.
I guess my question is, if we fund the part-time now, the use of the funds that he's trying to address the full-time position would not be available.
If you fund the part-time now,
Right.
that's correct, because he would have used some of those funds throughout FY20 until we get to the point to where we would be making that change from part-time to full-time. So that full value would not be there, that's correct. He would have used some of that funding to pay wages.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay. So we are voting to approve item number 5, the one part-time deputy coroner. Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Let's do a show of hands, if you will. Are you guys going to vote? Those in favor, raise your hand. In favor of item number 2. 1, 2.
Item number 5.
I'm sorry, number 5. 1, 2.
Of item number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Those opposed? 1,
1, 2,
3,
I oppose it, but.
4.
however,
4.
I'll change your vote. But if we have 6 votes, get a position, we have to close off. It's not what I want, but I will make that sacrifice. Because we're still gonna be looking at the position as we go on.
Well, you can go back and look at item number 3, full-time. If item number 5 fails, you can go back to item number 3. let's do this again, guys. Those in favor of item number 5, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's inconclusive.
So the motion is inconclusive.
Yes.
Now, Mayor Pro Tem, the motion and second to approve item number 3. Is there further discussion? Councilor Davis? No, okay. Item number 3, any further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Those in favor raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Those opposed? The motion carries. So item number 3 has carried.
So that's item number 4, one new full-size Impala for the full-time deputy coroner position at a value of $22,781.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion of this item number 4? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then let's go to the OLOS.
Okay, and so on page number 3, under the OLOS fund, there is an OLOS supplement for one new full-time deputy coroner position. The amount is $3,828. This was placed on the list by Councilor Pugh for the coroner's office.
Motion and seconded to approve the OLOS supplement. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Alexander, you're up.
Yes. Yes. I'd like to go back to item number 1 on the OLOS page for the marshal's office. It's the OLOS supplement that is relevant to the temporary position that council approved the deletion of. If I can get a motion to remove the supplement.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right. All right, back to the first page. In the general fund, we are now on item number 6. This was added to the add delete list by Councilor House. It's for Parks and Recreation. It's to add additional operating expenses.
Excuse me just a minute. Are you or one of the staff from the department keeping up with where we are on the number of days?
Yes, I'm keeping up.
Can you give us a total at this time of preliminary?
If all of the items.
No, I'm talking about from what we've done already.
But we haven't addressed the rest of the list. That also impacts the days. So, hang on.
We're at 65.76 days.
Right.
We've added .12 to the general fund. Is that?
Okay, so we started out at 69.12 days, and based on what council has voted on, we are at 69.10 days.
69.10, okay. All right, I'm sorry, go ahead now.
So, item number 6, added by Councilor House for Parks and Recreation. This is additional operating expenses for aquatics. The amount was $165,750.
Hearing no discussion.
That's correct.
Let's move to the next item. I'm sorry, Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. Operating expenses, this does not include any salaries.
That's correct.
Okay. I move to approve.
Motion and second to approve item number 6, which is $165,750, 0.33 days from the fund balance. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Next item on the list is item number 7, added by Councilor Woodson for Parks and Recreation. This is to reclassify 3 rec center leader positions, G2, to therapeutic recreation aides as G5. The cost of these reclassifications is $6,916, and that is 0.01 days impact to the fund balance.
Motion has been made and seconded to move approval. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 8 was added by Councilor Allen. It's for Recorder's Court. This is an additional part-time wages for 2 additional weekly court sessions on Thursdays. The amount for these sessions is $16,794. That's a 0.03 impact to the reduction to the fund balance.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. I think I mentioned earlier, as the Recorder's Court Committee met with the judges, with Judge Hunter and clerk, I think I mentioned that this would generate more revenue and this cost would be covered by that. So I think we're going to open up some additional, utilize the second courtroom in a more productive manner and would cover the cost that we're going to be adding to the budget. So.
And that would also apply to item 9, would it not?
It would, yes, ma'am, it would.
8 and 9.
8 and 9, yes, ma'am.
At this point, we're looking at item 8.
Right.
So we have a motion and a second to approve item 8. Councilor Davis.
Just wanted to restate that what I said earlier, I view this as a restructuring effort. It's ongoing. Hopefully this is the last part of the needs there. We've addressed a lot of issues in that department, so I'm okay with it.
I tell you, having served on the committee that Councilor Allen was talking about, the Recorder's Court and particularly our Columbus Police Department have been working together quite diligently to try to make it so that not only are our citizens taken care of, but our officers who have to go before the court. And I'm sorry, I should include also in that Sheriff's Department that they've been trying to do that, and I think you're right. I think this is probably one of those culminating things that once some of this is done, we can add another court. It'll make a big difference over there. So, Councilor Barnes.
I think that this is definitely a step in the right direction, and commend, because we were on the committee to commend the Recorder's Court, Sheriff's Department, the Police Department for working out in such a manner that would create something like this here.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we discovered was for the first time they all sat down and talked about their responsibilities and how you do this and what would make it better and easier, and that's what we see here. So item number 8 is before you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ms. Alexander.
All right. Item number 9 is also for Recorder's Court. It was added by Councilor Allen. This is to add 3 full-time Deputy Clerk 2, grade 12 positions at a cost of $127,302. It has a 0.25 reduction impact to the fund balance.
Motion and second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, so just checking in with the fund balance, we are at 68.47 days. Item number 10 was added to the add delete list by Councilor Garrett. This is for the Superior Court judges. This is to increase the annual supplements for the 7 judicial assistants by $5,000. That makes it a total of $10,000 that they'll receive as an annual supplement from the city. The amount of this addition is $37,681, and it has a 0.07 reduction to the fund balance days.
And this is another one that would be ongoing.
Yes.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and second to approve item number 10. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the list is item number 12. This was added to the list by Councilor Woodson. It's for the Public Defender's Office. This is to provide career ladder adjustment funding for 6 investigators so that they may go from grade 16 to 17, and to also reclassify an investigator grade 16E to an investigator supervisor grade 19A. The cost of these adjustments is $16,172, and it has 0.03 impact on fund balance days.
Motion and second to approve item number 12. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the list is for the District Attorney's Office. This was placed on the list by Councilor Allen. This is to provide funding for part-time wages for 2 administrative clerks, grade 11, at 20 hours a week. The cost is $31,034, and it has a 0.06 impact to the fund balance days.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilor Davis.
This is another one of those, this is the other one that I talked about with the remaining consistent. Even though I'm going to vote against this, it's not that I'm against it. I'm trying to remain consistent. It's the same conversation that I had with the coroner. My preference would be, again, to look at this on a part-time basis and then have some further information to justify the ongoing reoccurring expenses. And keep in mind, I mean, we've made a lot of decisions in the past. I just want to add this to it. We made a lot of decisions in the past based on departments telling us what their needs are, but it just seems to be kind of stepping up every year that we go through. So, and at the same time, based on decisions we've made, such as the 100 officers that we talked about, there was an intense need just because we were adding on all those who needed support, but we're not doing that. We don't have that. So, again, I'm not saying that there's not a need here. I just want to be consistent with my decisions, and it would be the same as with the coroner's office. I would support it if we had more information into the mid-year and then take it on as a full-time expenditure, but I want to remain consistent. So, thank you, Madam Budget Chair.
These are part. And the motion that's on the table is for 2 part-time positions at 20 hours a week.
Okay. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those in favor, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Those opposed.
1.
Okay, motion carries. And I see the district attorney is in the auditorium, or wherever you are, in the audience. We have already dealt with item number 14, which was the reclassification. We did that before you got here, so I wanted you to know that. We're not just skipping it just to skip it. Okay, thank you. Ms. Alexander?
Yes, item number 15.
Wait, before we go, Councilor Crabb, did you?
Yeah, I had a question. During Counselor Davis's comments about the coroner and the district attorney, he did mention about having an audit of those two departments. Is this the time or place to request that, or when do we bring that up?
I would think, and Mr. Mayor or Mr. City Attorney, you may want to help me with this, that this should come back to council during a regular council meeting. Is that right, Mr. City Attorney?
I believe so. Can
Okay.
I hear that back one time?
The question, I'm sorry. During Counselor Davis's discussion on the coroner and the district attorney, he mentioned having an audit of those two departments. And so I was just bringing that back up. Is this the time to ask for that, or do we ask it at a different point in time?
I would bring that back at a later meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Davis?
Yeah, let me, I'm not, I want to be careful in using the word audit. I guess, you know, if you want to look at that kind of broad, yeah, it would be somewhat of an audit. It's just, it would be additional information confirming. I don't have a problem, so to speak. You know, when you talk about audit, sometimes the term waste, abuse, and fraud comes to mind. There's none of, that's not what, we're talking more on the performance side, I guess, and it's just justifying with additional information, that's all.
So you still,
Councilor, would you turn on Councilor Crabb? There you go.
I'm sorry, so are you still suggesting that we need that based on the votes that were just taken?
Well, you know, if council wants the additional information, certainly I would like to see that, but I think the decisions have already been made, so
Okay.
I don't see it being reversed anytime soon.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Ms. Alexander?
Item number 15 was placed on the list by Councilor Woodson. This is for the police department. This would be to increase the auto and parts and supplies expense line. The amount is $198,040, and it has a .39 impact to the fund balance days.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 15. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the list is item number 17. This was added by Councilor House. It's for fire and EMS. It is also increasing the operating expenses.
Wait. Did you skip number 16?
16 we approved.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Number 17.
17 was added by Councilor House for fire and EMS, is to increase the operating expenses for auto parts and supplies, electricity, medical supplies, and pharmacy services. The amount is $145,000, and it's a .29 impact to the reserve days.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 17. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'm just checking in with the fund balance days. We're at 67.64 days with what has been approved by council. Moving on to the second page of the general fund, item number 18 was placed on the list by Councilor Davis. It's for the clerk of Superior Court. And this would be to reclassify one full-time deputy clerk G10 position and make it a part-time deputy clerk G10 position at 24 hours a week, and then also a part-time deputy clerk G10 at 20 hours per week. The cost is $12,905. It has a .03 impact to the fund balance reserves.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the list is item number 19. It was added by Councilor House. It is for the Planning Department, and it was to increase the travel expense line. The amount is $17,600, and it's a .03 impact to the reserve days.
Motion to approve and second. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is item number 20. It was for the clerk of council. It is to add one part-time administrative clerk, G9 position at 29 hours a week, and the amount is $17,577.
Ms. Alexander, we received from the clerk an addition. Tell me how these two work together, or
We just
what?
need to make an amendment to what's on the list. So as far, what's currently on the list is one part-time administrative clerk, G9 position at 25 hours a week. And as I understand it, the clerk is now requesting that that be a G7 support clerk at 25 hours a week, and that cost is $15,926.
So the only addition is the adding of the part-time support clerk. Is that right, Ms.
That's-
Davis, from what you are?
There, if I may, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay. So the conversation that I had with the clerk, as far as what she would desire council to approve, would be the addition of the one part-time support clerk position at 25 hours a week, but then to also make a change to item number 21, which is reclassifying the part-time administrative secretary, G10A, to a deputy clerk pro tem G12E, as in Edward, instead of C.
Okay. Counselor Barnes?
I was just alerted yesterday by the clerk of council if I could read the amendments. I think she had gotten together with Angelica on this here. So how do you want me to just read the whole thing that will cover the reclassifications, or how are we going to handle this
Well, we have an addition,
amendment?
an amendment that I think
Great.
Ms. Alexander has just explained to us, so
So if
if
he's
you would
willing to
like to
amend it.
repeat it, that's
No,
fine.
she's
but-
fine, she did it.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I also want to say that we met with the clerk of council, along with HR director and the assistant city attorney. And there was some question about changing the title of the administrative secretary to deputy clerk pro tem. And they were very satisfied with that because of the description, the job description that the person in that position would be doing. And it was very appropriate to change it to deputy pro tem.
Okay, thank you.
And that's from the legal department. If they want to say anything about it.
That's fine.
That
That designation we had discussed before as a pro tem, and that is appropriate in council's discretion.
My hearing from the military is going on.
Okay. Did we have a motion, Ms. Davis?
No.
There's not a motion on the floor yet?
So we have amended.
Wait, let's let one at a time.
I was just going to say, there's no motion on the floor. Do we need to make a motion to amend it or just move forward as you have stated?
Right. So we do need a motion. I have made the changes as amended by Councilor Barnes. And so just, if I could restate item number 20. Item number 20, added as amended by Councilor Barnes, is to add one part-time support clerk G7 position at 25 hours a week. The cost is $15,926. It has a .03 impact to the fund balance reserves.
And the motion has been made and seconded to approve item number 20 as amended. Councilor Davis.
The motion, I just want to say, again, for the public say and all those watching, the administration of Recorder's Court and the Clerk of Council is under this body, it's under council. And I already mentioned about the restructuring, and we've made a lot of changes and just kind of getting things where they need to be. So again, I know we have a committee that, a small group here, a small group of the Recorder's Court that's been really close to it. So I am under the impression that this is supported by that panel, by that group, as well as the body.
Any further discussion? Those in favor of the motion to approve item 20 as amended, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Yeah.
The next item is item number 21, also added by Councilor Barnes. As amended, it was to reclassify the part-time administrative secretary G10A to Deputy Clerk Pro Tem G12E as in Edward. The cost is $4,286, and it has .01 impact to the fund balance reserve days.
Motion's made and seconded to approve item number 21. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 22, added by Councilor Barnes for the Clerk of Council, is to reclassify the full-time Administrative Secretary G10A to Administrative Secretary G10C, and the amount is $1,704.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And so the last item in the general fund is item number 24. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not the last item. Last item on this sheet here. It was added by Councilor Huff. It's for the juvenile court. It's to reclassify a custody investigator, grade 13J, to a juvenile court director assistant at grade 16G. The cost is $3,749 and has a .01 impact to the fund balance reserves.
Motion's made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
So in the general fund, this was added at this meeting by Councilor Allen for the Tax Commissioner's Office. It is to increase the operating expenses by $22,000. It has a .04 impact to the reserve days.
Now, you don't have this on your sheet. This is what the Tax Commissioner added this morning. Are we doing them separately?
Yes, we're doing them
Okay.
separately.
Move for approval. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
So just to make clarification, there was one additional item for the Tax Commissioner's Office. It was for the reclassifications of 4 positions within the office. There was administrative operations, hang on, I just want to state it for the record. It was an accounting operations administrator, grade 20C, being reclassified to a grade 22A. And then there were 3 deputy tax commissioner positions, grade 18A, being reclassified to a grade 20A. The cost of these 4 reclassifications is $24,824. It has a .05 impact to the fund balance reserves.
And that's what we just approved.
Okay.
Okay. we approved the 4 upgrades.
Councilor Garrett said that he wanted to make a motion for both.
Both?
Is that correct?
Was it both? Okay. Okay.
So where we are right now is 67.43 days of fund balance reserves. Moving on to the other local option sales tax fund, which is the third page, to item number 3. This was added by Councilor Davis. It's for the Sheriff's Office, and it is to purchase 11 pursuit vehicles using the GMA leasing program. The annual lease amount is what's listed there, and the estimated amount is $109,453. It would have a 0.22 impact to the fund balance reserves for the next 5 years.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 3. Any discussion? And I'm assuming, Ms. Alexander, that the OLOS fund will handle these amounts?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
We are currently using fund balance reserves to pay these leases. So it would be a usage of reserves for the next 5 years.
Okay. Any discussion?
Unless revenue increases. Right now, we're using OLOS reserves to cover the annual lease payments for these vehicles.
Councilor Crabb.
Okay, so these, I'm looking at this, and it's showing a negative balance down at the bottom. So please explain to me how that works. See, I'm looking at this, and we have a negative balance here. So I'm just wondering how that works.
Right, so that figure there is the usage of fund balance reserves for the items that are listed above. So that total, so for all the items listed here, we're using 1.64 days. If all were approved by council, it would be a usage of 1.64 days for all the items listed here.
Of the fund balance?
Of the fund balance.
Okay, so we're spending more than what the OLOS, is that what it's saying?
Currently,
That we're spending more than what we've collected from the OLOS?
more than what we're projecting for revenues, but this amount could change next year if revenues should increase.
Okay. Okay.
Other discussion? The item before you then is to approve
11 pursuit vehicles.
I'm sorry, to approve item number 3 on the OLOS list. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is item number 4. It's also added by Councilor Davis for the Sheriff's Office. It is the purchase of 4 Pursuit Tahoes through the GMA leasing program. The annual leasing amount listed here is $50,950. Has a 0.10 impact to the fund balance reserves for FY20.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 5 was added to the add delete list by Councilor Barnes. It's for the police department. It is to lease 25 pursuit vehicles. The annual lease amount is estimated at $248,611. It has a 0.49 impact to the fund balance reserves.
Councilor Davis has moved approval of items 5 and 6, which is the 25 pursuit vehicles and the 4 pursuit Tahoes.
Okay.
And has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 7 was added by Councilor Huff, and I'd like to make one correction, Councilor Huff. This is actually a one-time cost. there is actually a one-time cost here. It's for the police department. It's the enhanced data P25 radio upgrade. The amount is $341,482. It has a .67 impact to the fund balance reserves.
It's been properly moved and seconded. I will remind you that this does come out of the OLOS funds, okay? Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Last item on the list for the OLOS fund was added by Councilor Barnes. It's for the police department. It's the headsets for the motor squad. The amount is $30,235. It has a .06 impact to the fund balance days.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? I do want to say that at this point, I think that what we have just done with the OLOS account funds is exactly what the OLOS was put into place to do, and that is to fund the needs of our public safety departments. And I know that, you know, when you say we've approved 45 vehicles here today, our public safety departments need those in order to do their job. I want us to have the headsets for the motor squad because they need that to do their job. So I think that what we've done, council, here today is perfectly in keeping with what the original intent of the OLOS was.
So before we move on to the last page of the
We've got a couple of people who want to say something. Councilor Davis.
Just a referral, please, and you don't have to do it anytime soon, but at some point, I'd like to come back and just kind of get an update on the lease program in general that we've been utilizing, just, you know, in total, how it's working out, and just a report to council on that.
Okay.
And any foresight into the future involving this plan.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
The GMA lease programs is one of the best. On the headsets, are all the police and is all the motor squad covered with the headsets?
Will this cover the entire motor squad, Chief? Yes, he's saying yes, it will.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so a quick recap here. We started out at 69.12 reserve days. 28.44 of that was for the general fund. 40.68 of that was for the OLOS fund. Based on what council has approved today, we are at 65.79 days, 26.75 for the general fund, and 39.04 for the OLOS.
Okay.
Sir, last two numbers. Currently, we're at 26.75 general fund days and 39.04 OLOS days, for a total of 65.79. Yes.
Ms. Alexander, one of the things that you and the city manager said in some of the prior meetings that we had on the GMA loss program, that we had to check and make sure we had capacity to do that. Have you had an opportunity to do that?
I did. They did respond to me yesterday, and we do have the capacity to lease all the vehicles that's on the list.
Okay, great, thank you.
So the last page here, just addressing the last two items, which is for the other funds. Item number 1 is a staff addition for non-departmental. It is to add film funding of $500,000 using economic development fund reserves for that film fund usage. And this is just allocating within the budget $500,000 of reserves for the film fund, and And obviously, it could come back to council at any point for approval, but this is just adding the funds within the budget.
And this, this item would come from the subsidy that we have given to the development, Economic Development Authority, is that correct?
That's not correct. This would
That's
actually
not
come
correct.
from reserves. This would come from our reserves.
It would come from our portion, we allocate to them, and then we retain
So we would
a
come.
portion. It'll come,
That's correct. We have .50 mills that we collect for economic development. .25 mills is allocated to the Development Authority. .25 mills is kept by the city. Out of our .25 mills, this $500,000 would be from that. And we currently have reserves in that fund of about $2.4 million, in addition to what we included in the budget.
Mr. City Manager?
well, she said it, and, you know, it's accumulated since the inception when you allocated that additional portion that we would retain, and so it would come from that portion.
And we would obviously come back to council with the MOU before usage of any of these funds.
And we'll follow through with what Councilor Davis talked about earlier in terms of, he talked about the terms, so forth.
And just one final note on the reserve portion from the Economic Development Fund, we spend about a little over $800,000 a year to repay the obligation to NCR and Blue Cross, and we collect about 1.2 something, so it's about just under $500,000 that accrues each year, so it'll take about a year to replenish this amount. It's not lost and gone forever. We should replenish it just within the next fiscal year.
And we have a couple of folks in queue. Councilor Davis.
Yes, thank you, Madam Budget Chair. Mr. City Manager, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I think we're all in agreement with this fund. I think everybody, you've heard me call it the Jobs Fund. I mean, it was, I think I gave a little historical aspect to how it was put together. Many years ago, we just hadn't utilized it, and basically you show me jobs, I write you a check, it's kind of like you produce jobs, you write a check. So I think as far as being consistent here, this request, when you heard me talk about an MOU earlier, this request is actually, you have to produce, you have to show something, you have to put something on the table, and I think that's what they're doing here. We got our first film. That's what they're doing, and that's why this is taxpayers' dollars now. This is coming out of it's economic development, but it's off of property taxes, and that goes out there to stir development, or that we can show that there's actually a product being produced, that there's production there. This certainly does that. It meets that qualification. I think sometimes there's requests that come that are kind of in the category of speculation. I don't see that here. I think there's actually some production, and you'll see jobs, you'll see economic development, and I think our terms would be coincided with the use of that fund. So looking forward to good things happening here.
And I understand one of the producers that has taken advantage of some of this film funding is in town talking to some of our college kids about being extras in his movie that he's putting together. So I don't know that he would want any of us to be in the movie, but anyway. Did you have something?
I was just mentioning that somebody that works with my husband got the call. Somebody that works with my husband got a call to be an extra in the film also. So the calls are going out.
Good. Okay, we have, I'm sorry, Mr. City Manager.
I was just going to say.
Have you been asked to be in the movie?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
But there is activity in the works or happening as we speak. So there's some things going on around town.
Yeah.
And so we've been directed, and no, we're dealing with it.
Okay. We don't have a motion on the floor. Is there a motion to approve item 1? It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Counselor? Okay, Mr. Allen, on this issue or on the? Yeah. Okay, all those in favor of approving item number 1, say aye. Those opposed? Item number 1 passes. Mr. Davis?
Mr. Mayor, if you would, in conjunction with council, just kind of put it on the to-do list maybe further sometime. It might be better that we just kind of tighten the definition of that, what I call the job fund. I think, and eventually, there may be a different body of leadership, and they may have a different definition of it. I just think it's, mission statement comes to my mind, but if we do that, I think that will be good, so it can be used on into the future, and everybody have an understanding. We'll all be on the same page.
I think it's a great idea. We probably ought to include the Development Authority in that conversation because as I recall, that second quarter mill was placed for them to access upon receiving our permission to utilize it. And it was exactly, as you pointed out, to be sort of a jobs fund. Anything that was going to help generate jobs for this region is what it would qualify. So I think it's a great idea. We'll get them in here, maybe at a work session, just to have that conversation.
Thank you. Ms. Alexander?
Okay. The last item on the list is item number 6. Is a staff addition, is to add funds for the Mercer project. And this was, council support was approved as a part of Resolution 44-18. The allocation for this year is $100,000, and it'll be $100,000 allocation for the next 4 years, in addition to FY20.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 6. Any discussion? I do want to say that I was at the announcement at the chamber headquarters last week, and the President Underwood from Mercer University was really talking very positively about the public-private partnership that we have in Columbus. And this is an example of that. And he said in his remarks that he didn't think there was another city in the state of Georgia that would do the kinds of things that we do in Columbus in a public-private partnership to make this community go. And this was one of the items that, not this particular item, but this was an example. This is an example of the kind of thing he was talking about. We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Those in favor of item 6 say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Councilor Allen.
Council's been requested, I may need some help on the numbers from the mayor on this, but council's been requested to consider the National Infantry Museum's funding of a road for some property that they're looking to develop out there. So far, the only thing that we have helped them with is donating the land. So they've asked our assistance in providing a road out there. I understand the road is in the neighborhood of $400,000 some odd dollars. Am I in the ballpark or something like that? What some of us have talked about is taking this out of the our portion of the economic development quarter mil. As said earlier, it does replenish, so we would recoup the funds at some point. But it would be an added benefit to the Infantry Museum and allow them to develop the property as they move forward.
Well, if I could just...
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to read the definition as it relates to the millage, of excising the millage for economic development as it reads in the Georgia law. according to OCGA Section 48-5-350, we can levy up to 3 mills to provide for financial assistance to our development authority, and it's for the purpose of developing trade, commerce, industry, and employment opportunities. So that's the definition of it according to state law.
And I certainly think what Councilor Allen is saying, if that road goes in as they are envisioning it, it will increase the retail. We have Ms. Hodge and the mayor, so however we want to do that. And then Councilor Davis.
Just wanted to comment, we'll have to get a price on that. I have not heard the $400,000 amount, but we'll have to get the definite parameters of that road and what the expectations are and get a cost for that.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to back up Councilor Allen on his request. He and I had a conversation about this. He was asking about that road and the fact that it does resonate that we've got, I think USA Today ranked it the #1 free museum on the planet in our backyard, and it has largely, well, almost entirely been membership driven. And they have long asked, I think, for us to help with some infrastructure roads in the interior of that property so they've got people interested in buying and leasing that property so that they can generate retail and restaurant and commercial opportunities. And so when Councilor Allen and I were talking about, I did make mention of this fund because it is, at its core, designed to generate jobs. And what they were talking about with that road, our portion of it was going to be, I had heard the $400,000 to $500,000, but I think the total road was going to be closer to $1.5 or $2 million. DOT was going to take on the rest of that. So we were talking about how it could be funded, and we mentioned this. So I think we just need to, again, it falls in line with what Councilor Davis was talking about. Just have that conversation with the chamber and make sure that it's a proper use for those funds.
So if we put $400,000 into this request, if it doesn't come up to $400,000, we of course wouldn't expend that much, right?
So,
Just to clarify, Mayor, is the Development Authority out of their portion of the millage would pay part of this, and we would pay out our portion. Is that what we're thinking?
I think it would be however you make it in a motion, but then the Development Authority would have to agree to that. Because right now, as far as I'm aware, the only amount that accrues is that difference between what we pay on that loan or that line of credit and then what it actually brings in. And currently, it's just under $500,000. So there's not really a portion. It's a pool that was going to be utilized by the Development Authority or any entity. It could be appropriated, I thought, to any entity that was going to generate jobs for the region. But I'll yield to Deputy City Manager Hodge.
Did you have something there? Councilor Davis.
Well, I feel like I just got thrown a Verlander curveball, that just dropped off the plate. But I thought we were just clear in the conversation that we were having. I would, look, I haven't been approached by anybody on this matter. I think it's a new subject, a new topic. Sounds like some other people haven't heard either. But I would first, just to what I'm hearing, that's a totally inappropriate use for this money. Totally inappropriate. It doesn't align up. I can name a number of situations. We're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about an access road is what we're talking about. We're not talking about jobs, okay? So I'd have a hard time justifying that. If we want to talk about an infrastructure road, I think we've already approved funding for this road, if I'm not mistaken, over $1 million, I believe.
No, what's been approved by council is a road that will go from Fort Benning Road over to South Lumpkin. The road they're referencing is kind of a north-south road through the interior of the property, so it's a different road.
It's a different road.
Well, I mean, I would think that we would have a proper discussion here on that matter. If there are funds appropriate for this, and if that's deemed necessary, I go back to the same Midland conversation we had about infrastructure there. It's the same thing. I think you would either have to look at discretionary funds from the transportation spots, the T-spots, or OLOST or infrastructure money. That's what it is. Or the Development Authority can borrow, take out bonds if they really want the road in. But I would really caution this council in thinking in that direction. That's an inappropriate use for this fund, a job fund that we've earmarked for economic development.
I would remind the council that when we, this was years ago, 10 years ago, when the museum was being developed and talked about, one of the things they talked about was having an area with retail shops around there, and that's what they want to put around this particular road. And if they put those retail shops in there, it would generate jobs, and it would generate sales tax for the city. So that's part of the reason why I think that this may be an appropriate place to look at some money.
And Madam Chair, I was going to say, because those funds are readily available, one thought would be you can make that decision anytime at any given meeting, and so I don't know that it necessarily has to be budgeted. Just a thought, because those funds are always available. That portion of the economic development funding portion that we retain internally. And so just, if you don't really want to debate it today, the money is always there and always available, and you can do it at any meeting. So just a thought.
It looks like a high-level conflict's going on there.
And so that would be my recommendation, Madam Chair.
That we hold this
Yes.
and bring it back for discussion at a council meeting.
And that way we can do more research.
It does not have to be in the
That's-
budget that we adopt
That's right.
for FY
That's correct.
2020. Okay.
Madam-
Councilor Councilor Davis.
No, and I'd say, look, if you want to, the thought's good, but why don't you treat it the same way you did the matter out in Midland? Turn it into a TAD. You utilize the money in that way.
We've not turned,
It's the same, you could do that, but that's what we did to put in the infrastructure. And, I was the one that argued that we should borrow the money out of the lost and take out bonds to put the infrastructure in. This body said, no, use the TAD money. So, we need to keep this stuff in mind.
any further discussion on this? So, Mr. City Manager, if you would bring this back at a later date, and we'll have a full discussion of that. Ms. Alexander.
So that concludes the add delete list. The only items that I'd like to make mention of is you'll see in the paper next Tuesday, advertisement for the budget as amended by council, and a notice for the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. The first Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing will be June 4th at 9 a.m. The second Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing will be June 4th at 6 p.m. As part of the regularly scheduled council meeting. Also on June 4th.
Ms. Alexander, that meeting that you said at 6 o'clock, could we move that time to 5:30 so it is the beginning of that meeting?
By law, it has to be 6 p.m. as far as the hearing, but the council meeting will start at 5:30 p.m.
So we'll have
a pause.
A little bit of proclamations and then go into this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So that's June 4th, and we'll also have the first reading of the budget ordinance on that day. Council can make additional changes on first reading to the budget ordinance. And then we'll advertise our 5-year history as far as the tax millage and advertise our third taxpayer bill of rights hearing, which will be held June 11th at 9 a.m., which is also a regularly scheduled council meeting. We'll, at that time, adopt the budget ordinance, and there'll be the first reading of the millage ordinance at that time. And then the last council meeting in June, which will be June 18th at 9 a.m. It's a special call meeting, and we will have the second reading of the millage ordinance at that time.
When do we vote?
Well, the actual votes will take place on the 11th. That would be when you would vote on the budget ordinance, and then the second vote will be on the 18th. You will be voting for the millage. Yes.
Anything else for Ms. Alexander?
18th is 9 a.m. Yes, ma'am.
I want to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Alexander and her staff. You guys have, we're not surprised that you have done a terrific job. You always do. But I think with the information that you have provided us and continue to provide us has made our job a lot easier. I do want to also thank Mr. City Manager and his staff and the Clerk of Council and her staff for keeping up with all of what we're trying to do up here. Anything else for the good of the order? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank you for your role as the chair of the budget committee. The budget process this time worked very well. We didn't have a whole lot of fighting. Thought it went real smooth. But everybody who wanted to say something was allowed to say whatever they wanted to say. And it was very different from some of our past budgets recently. So I hope that's an example of what's to come.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Huff.
Yes, ma'am. What were the final number days?
67.69.
I need to open it back up. Hang on.
No, I'm sorry, 65.79 is what she said. 65.79.
Okay, and
That is correct.
Okay, and we still have a meeting next week?
Yes, it's a council meeting.
Okay, I thought we had that special meeting and it had been blocked off, but okay, I'll be here.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, do you happen to have that schedule there before you? We're meeting at
9 a.m.
9 a.m. for the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights.
No, not next week. The taxpayer bill of rights is June 4th.
That's not next week?
No, ma'am.
Next week is May 28th, and we meet at 9 o'clock, which is different than we typically do. Guys, remember that. We typically would meet that evening, but we're going to meet that morning at 9 o'clock.
Yes, and we will send out reminders that it will be at 9 o'clock a.m.
Okay.
No.
There will not be budget items on that agenda. That will be a regular council meeting.
Yes.
Is that
That's correct.
correct? Okay. And then on the 4th, at 9 a.m. is the Taxpayer Bill of Rights.
Right.
At 5:30 is the regular council meeting.
That the 9 o'clock a.m. is not a council meeting. That's a public hearing for the taxpayers' bill of rights.
Right. The 9 o'clock is a hearing for the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Our finance director and city manager will be here. You are invited to come, councilors, if you wish to do that, to hear what the conversation is. And then at 5:30 on June the 4th, we will have a called regular council meeting starting at 5:30, and at 6 o'clock, we will move into the second taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing,
That's correct.
okay? And then on the 11th, a regular council meeting at 9 o'clock. And then on the 18th, a called council meeting at 9 o'clock a.m. There will be the third taxpayer Bill of Rights?
Third
hearing?
taxpayer bill of rights will be on the 11th.
On the 11th, okay. The 18th then will be
Just a regular meeting.
a regular meeting, at which time the final budget will be adopted.
Yes,
And millage rate.
the millage.
The clerk of council is going to put all of this in an email and send it to us. Aren't you, Ms. Davis? Thank you. Just know that it's a little different, so
Right.
get there.
And the June 25th meeting has been canceled.
That's
And,
correct.
yeah, the June 25th meeting has been canceled, so.
Yes.
Anything else for the good of the order? I will tell you that the Northside High School baseball team is on its way to Rome, Georgia to play for the state championship. So if you don't have anything to do this afternoon, it doesn't take long to get to Rome, and a couple of hours, and you can watch them win the state championship, we hope.
All
So
right.
anything else for the good of the order? If not, meeting is adjourned. I'm sorry?
Meeting, we do want to take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you.